Hello, my friends. I wanted to take a couple minutes here to give you some of an overview of some of the things I've been thinking about lately. It's been an amazing kind of period in the last few days in terms of the input and the different kind of things that have shown up in my life. I heard the other day, for instance, that Google has come up with a new quantum computer that in 30 seconds can solve problems that no supercomputer on the planet can solve. And that in November of this year, here in 2019, that IBM will be coming up with a similar supercomputer that will also be able to solve these kinds of problems. Kind of begs the question of why is Google doing quantum computers that are the most powerful computers in the world? And then at the same time, I ran into this article, this report, from three of the most extraordinary kind of remote viewers on the planet. This is these guys, these psychic kind of guys from out of the program that the CIA started back in the 70s to be able to use psychics to spy on the Soviet Union and China and so on. And these guys had a project, a blind project, to look out next year and see what they had to see about a particular area. And they found, with great kind of correlation, a couple of them came up with the notion and all the imagery and other kind of things that a major U.S. city is going to be flattened by a catastrophic disaster of one sort or another in the first quarter of next year. And at the same time, I'm seeing these articles, reading this. I watched the film as a video, as a matter of fact, about how from a consultant from DARPA was talking about the fact that they now have available nano-sized particles that can be ingested, just put into the air, maybe with chemtrails or something like that. This is not science fiction. This is literally happening, that people can ingest into their body. They have no way of knowing that they've got them, that there are satellites that can identify who you are by these nanoparticles that are in your brain, and that then can send a signal back and influence your thoughts and how you behave. And this is all done from the cloud. It's an extraordinary kind of stuff. It's hard to believe. I mean, I've come to the conclusion, talking to some of my friends, that it's almost surreal, some of what's going on here. Another analyst, for instance, came up with a report the other day that said that, and this is a sophisticated guy, says that there is an imminent, all the indicators point toward an imminent catastrophic collapse of the financial system, and the global financial system. Like the Lehman, back in the 2007 when the Lehman Brothers collapsed. So this is all coming together, and it's piling one thing on top of each other. And what you're seeing is this exponential increase in breakthrough and catastrophic and big threats to the present system that are working us into the next 5 to 7 years, which I think are going to be the most extraordinary time in the history of the planet. Literally, that there is more change and bigger change that is coming in the next half decade or so than we've ever seen before. And the question becomes, of course, how do you deal with that? And where is it going? Now, here at the Arlington Institute, there are a number of projects that we're starting, and you'll get some information about that in the next couple of 3 weeks to begin to look systematically at those kinds of changes. I'm going to start a video blog like this with a conversation where a couple of times a week we can talk about what are the things that are lined up that are coming downstream. Where are the potential futures that are on the back end of this thing, this emergent new world, or maybe the dystopian kind of place that is one of the alternatives. And then how do you deal with it? How do you prepare yourself to deal with these kinds of things? And we try to do it, of course, through transition talks and through the newsletter, through Future Edition, all to try to give you more information about what's coming downstream and how do you prepare yourself. There are a number of ways in which you can prepare yourself. There are a number of ways that you could get ready for something like this. I mean, it's kind of like if you were going to take a trip into some place that you'd never been before that was really quite strange, and you wanted to find out before the fact what you might get into. I mean, you could go online and look around for what kind of information that was there. You could go find people who had already been there. There are a variety of things like this that are available. In this particular case, though, the change is so big and it's so extraordinary that trying to find somebody, there's nobody that's been in this place. It really is, there is no analog. I mean, that's the nature of paradigm shifts, that the reality how you understand reality fundamentally shifts. And so if you got a new reality that's coming up, and you're trying to think about that from the previous kind of present kind of situation, it doesn't make any sense. And so what you have to do is, among other things, you have to open yourself up to the new ideas that come in. It's almost certain that if you really are convinced that you know how everything works and where it's going and so on, you're absolutely wrong. Because not only the nature of how things work is different, but where this is going and the new world and how it will operate is really quite different. You can kind of prepare yourself. If you don't prepare yourself, then what happens is that you get surprised. And these are really big surprises. This is bigger than any kind of surprises you've ever seen before. And if you walk yourself into one of these things not having thought about it before and prepared yourself, then you're out of time, you're out of money, you're out of ideas. And then it is full of fear and it's very painful. And so this is the ultimate time when, in personal kind of terms and other kind of terms, that you need to be able to transcend. That's the essence of this kind of evolutionary kind of process, is to rise to a new occasion, to become essentially the beginning of a new human. How do you get yourself to where you can see things in a different way? Well, there's a number of ways. I mean, you could get yourself in a car wreck and almost die and have a near-death experience or an out-of-body or whatever, and you can go out and the angels will show up and tell you how it works. And you'll come back and you'll see the world in an all different way. I mean, there are people obviously who have done that and it changes their life. They live without fear. It's a whole different kind of thing. You could wander around and try to read about things and try to get some idea from historical stuff, and maybe even plug into people like Cryon or channel sources that have a different perspective, that come from a different kind of point of view. And then you can maybe find people who have done some of the work for you. We've got our next speaker who's coming to Transition Talks is Robert David Steele. He'll be here with us on the 19th of October. And Robert among other things, is an extraordinary kind of voracious kind of reader. He has read and reviewed over 2,600 books for Google, nonfiction books, which is more than anybody else has. And I've read a lot of books, but I certainly haven't read that many. But what that has allowed a guy like Robert to do is to build a synthetic kind of perspective of how this reality works that then kind of positions you to be able to work yourself into this new world and prepare yourself for the new world. Because if you figure out that it doesn't work the way you thought it did, because the way you think it is the old kind of reality, then you're better prepared. You're better in a position to be able to deal with it. Robert, I asked, well, Robert's going to come and talk about. He's read all these books, and I asked him to come and talk about 3 or 4 of them that have really changed his mind. I mean, this is a smart guy, and to find a book that just really rocks you back on your seat, and you say, wait a second, I didn't know that was going on. Well, he had 5, I think, books like that, and I said, come and talk to us about that. And as it turned out, it's kind of broadened out to a few more. But what it gives you is a whole integrated kind of picture that says, this is not the way it looks like. I mean, when you talk about these nanoparticles that the Defense Department is trying to get everybody to ingest so that they can control you, you've got to say to yourself, man, if I didn't know about that before, then is that a control mechanism? Is this on its way to some kind of large global control regime? The answer is probably yes, and that's part of what we're going to talk about. And so I hope you'll come and be with us on the 19th. But these kinds of opportunities, you need to be permeable. You need to be open to the new ideas that come in, because the whole method, the whole process of kind of working your way up this exponential curve in the next for a half decade or so, is all about seeing the new ideas come in and then being able to adapt and to change and to be open to the change, and not to say, well, my parents were always Republicans and so I'm a Republican, or I always was a Democrat, or whatever it turns out to be, because the world is changing and a new world is emerging, and it's going to be really, really different than what it's been in the past. And so we're working our way through all kinds of very interesting speakers at Transition Talks, and we'll start this new video blog, and so there'll be a whole lot of new things that we're going to do in addition to new websites and other stuff, and so it's going to be an interesting time. But I hope you'll come in the near term, come and see Robert David Steele on the 19th, and you can find out all the information at transitiontalks.org, and then I'll be back and we'll chat about some more things in the future. So thanks.